Join me for Ask the Good Doctor, live today and every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 noon Central Standard Time, and 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Bring your questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. We're live on my YouTube channel, Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Thank you, Alexa, for this ditty. I love it. I love it. I love it. Welcome, everybody. Come on in. Tell everybody that Dr. LaJoyce Brookshire is live, and we are here to help you attain, maintain, and reclaim your perfect health. Grab your Good Doctor notebook today. You are not going to want to miss 1 second of this conversation. Snuggle in with your lunch. Do whatever it is you have to do to get comfortable. We've got some information that's going to blow your mind today. I'd like to first make an announcement. And that is, of course, you've heard me talk about this before. It is our Wellness Warriors Weekend Getaway. Yes, we are having it this year, 2021, and we have a wonderful flyer to show you. There it is, the Wellness Warriors Weekend Getaway. Because of COVID, we are doing very small numbers in 2 power-packed weekends this June at the Essex Culinary Resort and Spa. Ooh la la, June 10th through 13th and June 16th through 19th. There actually aren't many rooms left because a lot of people who went in 2019 are coming back, and a lot of those who were supposed to attend in 2020 have reserved themselves a room. So we will only have 40 people per weekend, which is why we're doing it for 2 weekends. You'll have your choice of 2 weekend dates, and we have, of course, that limited attendees for safety, one-on-one sessions with the practitioners and the clinics, and of course, reflexology, foot evaluation, a pain clinic, nutrition clinic, a soul wealth check, an EMF sensitivity evaluation, cooking demonstrations, and a whole lot more. If you'd like to be there, send me an email at drbrookshire@msn.com. I'm sorry, that's drbrookshire@outlook.com. That's drbrookshire@outlook.com. I don't want you to miss it. Thank you so much. Well, our guest today comes to us from Chicago, my sweet home, Chicago. He is an amazing professional in this field of sustainability. He is the founding managing partner of Integrating Green Technologies. His name is Mr. Carl Tutt. Hello, Carl. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate being on the show.
Oh, listen, we appreciate having you. I'd love to see you there on the screen. I don't know if anybody else can see him or not. This live thing is completely different. Technical difficulties. There we are. Hi,
there
Carl.
We go. All right.
All right. Yes. We want to have a conversation today about the correlation between sustainability, COVID, and climate change. Yeah, I told you we're gonna blow your mind today, right?
Ooh. That's a loaded statement. And it's going to need more than one show for us to get it done.
You know what? We can get it done until we get it done. We're going to keep you back until we talk this completely out. So let me just say right now, this is part 1 of Mr. Carl Tutt and the conversation on sustainability, COVID, and climate change and the correlation. And I thought it was befitting to have Carl for this conversation because when we had our pre-interview, he literally blew my mind. I kept saying, wait a minute. He said, I hear you thinking. Yes, he was blowing me out the water. So, Carl, first, for those who may not know, please define for us what sustainability is and why it's important to our community specifically.
So let's talk about what it's not for a second. Okay. Because a lot of people, when they hear the word sustainability, they think about like construction and buildings and things like that. They try to put sustainability into a box and make it a thing. And sustainability is not a thing. It's it's a what is going to be.
Whoa.
And so for those that are on and watching the show right now, I would ask them to look up the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There's a link when you go and just put in UN SDGs. So United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
Okay.
When you go to that link, you're going to see 17 different items. Those 17 different items were approved by the United Nations back in September 15th, 2015.
Wow.
Now, the reason why you have not heard about them is because it was during President Obama's era in his second term.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the current president came on, he did not continue that initiative into the United States.
Wait, so I need you to pause. I need you to pause right there. Are you trying to say to me that the whole world is involved in these sustainable development goals except the United States?
I won't say except the United States, but the United States has been pretty much hidden as far as, you know, our people here in the United States understanding what sustainable development goals are. And I'm gonna give you a little bit more information. There are people that understood that, and you could see the changes that were taking place as we were coming up to this current election or this past election. And so I want to explain that to you too.
Please do.
But let's talk about the fact that we, the United States, had agreed, part of 193 nations, that we were going to participate in sustainable development goals that impact the world and the people that live on it, and put these goals in place to be implemented or be in place by 2000. We've lost the last 4 years because
Wow.
why I'm talking about it. What are you gonna say, Joyce?
Yes, well, why not?
We haven't talked about it because it wasn't part of the United States agenda as far as the capital is concerned. If you notice, there was, you know, debunk about climate change. There is no climate change. There is no this. There is no that. We came out of the Paris Accords. We started stepping away from the United Nations. We started stepping away from the World Health Organization. Mm-hmm. These are all things that were put in place by the current president.
Okay.
And that was taking us further and further away from what it is that we really need to do in this country, and collaborate with other countries that are already doing sustainable development things. And so at this point, we're starting to get back on track. So let me talk about that just for a second.
Please.
So before the election, for the presidential election, you started hearing things, you started hearing the word sustainability. You started hearing companies like Morgan Stanley and BlackRock. BlackRock is the largest investment institution in the world with over $7 trillion in assets that they manage. If you go to their website, they have a whole page that can accelerate the recovery of what's been going on with COVID-19. The work that we've been doing here at Integrating Green Technologies, we were showing companies how sustainable development can impact several areas of their company. We showed them how we could reduce their operating costs. We showed them how to increase their revenues. And if they have, if they keep track of customer counts, we showed them how to increase their customer counts. We showed them how to increase their fixed asset portfolio. We even showed them how, through the efforts of what we do, we could increase their stock price. That's all connected to the economy.
I have heard you say,
and everything else that we do.
And I have heard you say that sustainability is the new economy.
It is. It's going to be the new economy. It's going to be the new economy, so much so that Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 companies are going to be graded on their sustainability efforts. And so there's another term that's out there called ESGs. Okay. ESGs are economic, social, and governance. And so what they're trying to do now, and there's a meeting going on this month with the top 4 public accounting firms to identify what the grading method is going to be when they do audits, because, you know, all the Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 companies, they get audited every year, and they bring in their external auditors to talk about, you know, what they've done and met the compliances and things like that. Well, they're going to be graded by these public accounting firms on their ESG efforts. And because of that grading system, it also determines their ability to receive investment funds. So it impacts their stock price. So you're going to start to see sustainability goals incorporated into ESGs to determine what that company is doing to have an impact on the environment, on the earth, and the people that live on it.
Okay.
This is going to be a totally new way of how we're going to be doing business.
This is a game changer.
It's a total game changer. And
so let's talk about our social determinants of health.
Ooh.
Yeah, just jump right into that.
See, that's the heavy stuff. That's the
heavy stuff. Well, that's why everyone's here, because you're here because you have the ability to break that down for us, and so that we can clearly understand what the social determinants of health are in terms of in its relation and being an aspect of sustainability. Please define it.
So the social determinants of health are various aspects that determine your well-being. And so it's broken down into about 4 or 5 different categories. So I'm going to list out some of these categories. So they are economic stability. So it gets into financial literacy, your employment, things like that. You get into social and community contexts. And so it's, you know, who you're around, who you associate with, that affects your mental health.
Yes,
it gets into your neighborhood and your environment. Where you live impacts your social determinants of health. I'll give you an idea, and there's studies that are done here in Chicago where they looked at the zip codes. So the geography of where you live impacts your social determinants of health.
Yeah.
So they compared people that live in downtown Chicago against people on the west side of Chicago that are about 7 to 8 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
They determined that the mortality rate for someone living downtown Chicago is around 80 years old.
Oh.
If you go 6 or 7 miles and you move to the west side of Chicago, that rate goes down to 60. So within a 6-mile radius, which is your geography, your zip code,
yes,
determines how long or the possibility of you living on this earth.
Wow.
So that gets into the neighborhoods and the environment. So you think about it, the environment that you have in downtown Chicago is going to be very different from the environment you're going to have on the west side of Chicago.
'Tis true.
And that affects the social determinants of health.
Oh gosh, then what do they say about the south side where I'm from?
It's south side, the same thing. You're going through the same thing, but I'm just giving you an example. And then you get into healthcare.
Yeah.
You know, healthcare is another issue, access to healthcare, and also being knowledgeable about using the healthcare that you have. You have millions of people out here that are paying premiums on a monthly basis and don't utilize the healthcare that they have in place.
True.
And so we have to start talking about how to create a regimen or reminders. You know, you still got to get checkups. You got to have annual physicals, especially when you're over 35 years old. We got to be talking about colonoscopies. We can't be scared of the colonoscopy. Okay, we have to get these things done because that impacts our social determinant of health. And then the other piece is education and access to education. And you look at the disparities when you look at cities that are looking at charter schools versus public schools,
yes,
versus parochial schools, you know, versus Catholic schools. You know, I mean, you go through all of that, and there's disparities between those different types of schools. And those disparities also impact your social determinant of health.
Wow. All right. In relation to COVID, then, these social determinants of health largely have to do with where we live and
Not
whether
just
or
where you
not.
live, not just where you live, but also what you do.
Okay.
So, some of us, we're fortunate. We have a luxury of being able to work from home.
Yes.
And so we can be on a Zoom call or a broadcast like this from the comfort of our home.
Yes.
But you have folks that are social servants, public servants. You have people that are bus drivers, that are police officers, that are in the medical field. And in some cases, you have two income earners that are both out there in the public.
Yes, because now they're called essential workers.
Essential workers, exactly. So you have these group of essential workers. In a lot of cases, they are African American and Latinx for the most part. And so when you look at the positivity rate of COVID, and we've got the data, not every state has done the data, but Illinois, thankfully, has done the data. And I think about 6 or 7 other states have done the data. It has been shown that African American and Latinx positivity rate is 3 to 4 times higher than Caucasian.
That's right.
And so you say, well, what do I have to do? Well, you have to change or think about what you do, your environment, to make sure that you're safe. So if you are an essential worker, you can't do things the same way as someone that's sitting behind a camera.
Right.
So you have to come home and you have to be diligent in taking off your clothes and taking a shower and washing. Yep. You have to create routines to make sure that you can even interact with your family in your own house.
Very true.
I've got a friend of mine, a good brother, that has a funeral home on the south side of Chicago.
Yes.
And he's talked about how he has not had a chance to really formally interact with his family since March.
How so?
Because there's so much activity going on with his business. When you look at folks that are leaving this earth right now, he tells me that on any given Saturday, he can have up to 22 to 25 funerals.
Oh my
a week. That's just Saturday. We're not talking about the rest of the week. We're just talking about Saturday.
Oh my goodness.
22 to 25 funerals each Saturday.
Wow.
And so there's so much interaction, public interaction. He's cautious about interacting with his family.
Yes, he should, as he should be.
He should be.
And they're handling the dead bodies of people who are infected. Do we really know what happens upon death?
And that's another issue that we don't know either. And so here's a couple of things. One is when someone expires and they're coming to the mortuary.
Oh, stop right there. You could tell in my world, it's dead, die, or death. You say expired like it's some milk.
When you gone from this earth,
okay,
and you come into the mortuary, they have to change their process, and so they have to be dressed up almost like it's
hazmat,
like a bubonic plague type situation, because they do not know, or like Ebola, they do not know what their situation is going to be. They don't know, even though that body does not breathe anymore, they don't know how the virus still exists in the body, because there's been no studies to talk about it yet.
Let me say this, since you bring up the bubonic plague, you bring up good conversation on a Wednesday afternoon, Mr. Carl Tutt. Do you know that the song Ring Around the Rosies, Pocket Full of Posies was written during the times of the bubonic plague?
I've heard about that.
Yes. In fact, the caretakers, the undertakers, who went to pick up dead bodies would carry a pocket full of posies, which is a flower. And because it masked the stench, and it has like a mentholated kind of fragrance.
Okay.
And so this is why some people in the holistic world, including myself, talk about, and I've talked about this, placing a little bit of Vicks just around the rim of the nose, because it doesn't, those droplets don't like that.
Yes.
Because it's a lipid, and the grease, if you will, from the Vicks salve is also lipid. Not a whole dollop, y'all. Just a smear. Gotta say it.
Just a little dab will do you.
Just a little dab will do you. Just around the nose. And then put on your mask.
There you go. There you go. So yeah, so right now, like I said, they have not done studies to determine what the impact of COVID is for somebody that's dead.
Oh, God.
And so they have to prepare for that, because they have to be cautious. And you, for those of you that are out there that may have lost loved ones and had to have specific interaction with the mortuaries, you might see an additional charge on your bill. And I've seen up to about $500 where they're charging you if your loved one was a COVID case situation. They prepare for that and they charge you for that because they have to wear different equipment, special equipment. Now, the next phase is...
Wait a minute. And that equipment cannot be reused.
No.
So if they're having this many funerals in one day, they've got to throw this PPE away.
That's correct.
Personal protective stuff. So it's not something that can be washed and reused. It's disposable.
No.
No wonder
you gotta get rid of it. That's why there's a charge. So then let's go a step further. So let's say after the person has been gone through the embalming and everything, and we believe that COVID no longer exists at that time in that person's body, but there's been no guidance or information given to mortuaries to let them know whether that's true or not. And so you have to be careful when you go to a funeral service.
Wait, why not? I mean, we're a year into this thing already. Why not any guidelines? Are they just leaving it to the common sense of the American people? We see how that has played out.
They're leaving it to the common sense of each mortuary. And I'm telling you, mortuary leaders will tell you they have been giving no guidance by the CDC on what they can do and what they can't do. They haven't got to that level yet because they're dealing with so many other things. I mean, you think about it. What we were dealing with, CDC information was being suppressed.
Yes.
And so they were dealing with that, let alone trying to get information to all the different aspects that impact COVID-19. So that's what we were dealing with. So hopefully at some point in time with the new administration, we will get more guidelines to help make sure that everyone is safe on a holistic way, because that's part of what we're dealing with.
Right. So let me just be clear here. We need to sound the alarm then to our communities about precautionary measures that we need to take when even just attending a funeral.
Yes. Because you know how people get emotional and they want to get close to the casket and you know, oh my baby, and you want to lay on the casket. You don't want to do that because you don't know.
What's it going to take for those studies to be done and to be conclusive, Carl?
It takes outcry and attention, because you think about it, what we're going through with the mortuaries is an aftermath of a COVID experience. See, okay. It's post-COVID. So because it's post-COVID, it's not looked upon as much as it should be, because it's an after effect. You see what I mean? It's an after effect. We need to make it and pull it more to the forefront and make it part of the whole COVID process. See, we focus more on symptoms, and we talk about symptomatic, and we talk about what happens when you go to the hospital, and when you go to the get on a ventilator or not, and everything. We don't talk about anything about you expiring. We don't talk about when you die, what happens. Nobody, have you ever seen anything or any article, any type of broadcast that talks about what happens when you die and you're a COVID patient?
No, not one word.
We haven't seen anything.
Not one word.
And so it needs to be part of the process. Just as much as we talk about the symptoms of COVID, we have to talk about the aftermath of COVID.
Yes. Okay.
And so people have to start bringing those thought processes up and say, we need to talk about that because it impacts us as well.
Very much so, since our community is more impacted than the others.
No question.
And it has everything to do with the underlying conditions, which is why I'm always trying to teach. Let's attack the underlying conditions. This is the conversation that's not being had. We're not talking about healing from those anomalies that could make us more susceptible in the first place to a COVID. Let's just talk about, even last week, you weren't here, but Chris, my very producer who was connecting you today, he gave his testimony last week about how he's lost more than 170 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And when that's right. And when he contracted COVID, it was nothing short of just cold symptoms. And he and his entire family contracted it. But that could have been a very different outcome for him 170 pounds ago. That's correct. So we have to, I'm working on my own 25 pounds for the last, I don't know how long, but I'm working on them. And we have to reduce every comorbidity and take every single precaution. So this sounding the alarm is vitally important to our community specifically, and we have to take up the mantle to do that. I'm glad your company is there. Let's talk about what's happening in the schools. Okay. Oh, did y'all see that little smirk he gave?
Let's talk about it. What you want to talk about?
What you know, Brother Carl?
What you want to talk about, Dr. LaJoyce? What you want to talk about?
Let's just talk about the air filters first, and the air in the schools, and what they should have.
So this is an issue. This is a national issue to try to figure out the best way for children to go back to school.
Yes.
And people are trying to figure it out. And some of them are doing it in a pretty good way. Some of them are doing it in a not so good way. When you look at the top or the largest school systems in the country, most people look to 3 different areas. So they look at New York, Chicago, and LA. Those are the top 3. If you look at LA, which is like number 2, I believe, I've already seen articles that with their children going back to school, 1 in 3 children in school have COVID.
In LA?
In LA.
Here's the danger of that. That makes them uninsurable.
Yes, it does. At least based on the laws that are in place, the healthcare protocols that are in place, yes, it does. Now, New York, which is really number 1, even though I'm in Chicago, they tried to go back to school, and they put certain protocols in place, and over time it didn't work, so they had to come out. Chicago was trying to follow what New York did, and they started to realize that what they're doing is not working. So here at Integrating Green Technologies, we try to inform them on what we believe based on our experiences, our background, our team of experts, to let them know what's in the best interest to help children go back to school. Now, what people need to understand, when you look at social interaction, the largest piece of a pie, so to speak, when it looks at the different aspects of social interaction, take place in a school.
Yes.
And so if you can fix the school environment, you impact the rest of the environment of everywhere else that you go. So how do you do that?
Yeah.
You do that by creating an environment that's similar to the outside. So let me go into details about that.
Okay.
90% of our time is spent indoors. If you sit back and think and go, how much time do I spend inside? You in the house, you're at your job, you sleep. So the only time you go out is when you're going to and from work, you're going to the store, something like that. So you think about it, if you look at your time, 90% of your time is indoors. And so when you're in an indoor environment and you have a lot of other people that are there as well,
yes,
they create these things called particulates.
Yes, they do.
Okay. People create particulates through droplets and things. That's why we wear a mask. And so we're dealing with these particulates. So you say, well, how can we minimize particulates? Well, people say, well, let's get an air purifier. We can take care of it with that. And let's talk about air purification. So
Yes.
air purifiers, when you break it down, if you look inside of an air purifier is like a reverse fan. So you know how when back in the day, when you didn't have air conditioning in your house, and when you wanted to, try to cool off a room, you say, well, do I want the air coming at me, or do I want the air going out so I can start sucking the air out of the room and try to cool down the room?
Right.
Well, an air purifier is like a reverse fan. It's sucking, it's pulling in particles.
Yes.
That's in the air. And it goes into a filter. And it's captured in that filter. It's not dead.
Oh,
it's just captured in the
pause,
filter.
Sir. Pause. I heard you. I'm trying to multitask at the minute, but I heard you. You said the air purifier sucks in the particulates, but the particulates don't die.
They don't die.
Come on.
They don't die, but they are contained.
Uh-huh.
And so now you've got them contained. The question, especially dealing with the school system, is, okay, when it's time to clean that air purifier, who cleans it?
Oof. Placing them at risk.
So are you expecting the teacher to clean it? Are you going to have a custodian clean it? Okay, and whoever cleans it, what do they have to wear to clean it?
Mr. Carl Tutt, you are saying to me that this is a whole nother job description. This needs somebody who's certified, somebody who's qualified, and somebody who has on PPE to do this.
Correct. You have to have on PPE to do this because you don't know what has gone into that filter, which is the reason why we don't really recommend air purifier in the classroom. What we recommend is an air system that's an ionized system. So you say, okay, well, what's ionized? So ionized is the type of environment that actually kills COVID.
Okay.
So when you're outdoors, let's say you go out into the forest preserves or in a national park or things like that, that environment is an ionized environment. And that ionized environment breaks down COVID. It can't survive in that environment. And so what you want to do is you're bringing the outside. Remember I mentioned the outside into the inside? That's what you're doing. You're bringing the outside into the inside, making that inside an ionized environment so that COVID or anything, influenza, it can't exist in that environment.
Right.
And you don't have to worry about filtering because what it's doing is putting out. So it doesn't collect, it puts out. So it put out ionization and changes the environment of the air. And when you start looking at the positivity rate between Caucasian, African-American, and Latinx students, now you're talking about a level playing field.
Okay.
And so that positivity differential doesn't matter because you're in an ionized environment. And the best thing you want for your child is to have your child leave your home, go to school, in a protected environment and come back the same way they left.
That's right. That's the expectation that a parent has when they send their child into a place that's supposedly a safe environment.
That's correct.
So what you say then is really bringing to bear that the school environments are not really safe.
The school environments are not safe enough. There are things that they put in place, and I applaud them for what they're trying to do.
Okay.
But they've never done it before. You think about it. It's a pandemic. When's the last time they seen it? 1918? Okay, they weren't alive.
Huh.
I went around. You went around. So we're trying to figure this thing out. But if you go back and look into your history books, when we had the last pandemic in 1918, that was the introduction of the school nurse. And it's the school nurse that helped to keep things on track.
Yes.
And to identify when there were issues with that pandemic back at that time. You have schools that don't have a school nurse right now.
How crazy is that? How is that even possible?
And so you need to have that person or those persons in the school to help identify symptoms, to also look at the asymptomatic situations. And I pause because I try to make sure I'm able to explain asymptomatic, because people use asymptomatic like it's just.
They do.
You know, let's talk about asymptomatic just for a
Please.
second, because it really relates to the schools. When you're asymptomatic, what it means is that you have COVID.
That's right.
But you don't know you have COVID. You show no signs. You have no symptoms, but you carry it. And so as a child, you go into school and you're in the second grade, third grade, kindergarten.
Yes.
You can have COVID and just be playing with all your other buddies and everything and interacting with that teacher and don't even realize that you're infecting the teacher.
That's right.
And so we have to understand these terms that are being used. When somebody says asymptomatic, it's serious.
Yes, it's true. And
Okay.
people are flitting about in their asymptomatic stages, thinking that just because they don't really feel badly, that it's okay to be out and about maskless while they infect others.
And this is a perfect example of that is what happened on January 6th at the Capitol.
There you go.
When those legislators were housed together, everyone didn't have a mask on. Okay, it was a panic situation. So they're not thinking.
I'd have made them go to a room by themselves.
They may not have had time to get to a room by themselves. Think about it. You know, it was like, let's go, let's go, let's go. But the thing is, you still didn't have a mask on. And from that experience, now you have senators and congressmen that have contracted COVID from that experience of being in the same place together. These are things that we need to be dealing with. That's an asymptomatic situation. That's and can turn into something much bigger, like a super spreader, depending on where they go and what they do.
No doubt. Not to mention the people who were actually the invaders themselves who were maskless.
Oh, no question about it. That's a whole nother situation.
They're most likely to be the carriers.
And think about this, Dr. LaJoyce, they came from all over the country.
They did.
And so what happens when they got through and they thought they were going to be getting away with all their antics and go back to their respective states and everything, and they're getting on planes and they're going back home to their families and to their friends, even though many of them got arrested, but still they were going back to their families and friends and don't even realize they could be COVID carriers. So this thing gets bigger and bigger as we go along. So I'm so pleased that we're having this conversation today and we're able to, hand out some information for people to really understand what we have to do.
I want to go back to the air purifiers for just a minute in the schools.
Sure.
I'm sorry, the filtration.
Filtration.
Because, that's right. The air filtration. Have many schools come to understand that what they need is an air purifier, not an air filter?
Not all have, and what they try to do, and I think some of it is funding. That's one. I think some of it is lack of education and bringing in people that can help them solve the problem. Because what they do is they offset it. So if you don't have adequate airflow, that's another thing we can get into and talk about too, because airflow is very important.
Very much so.
So you're going to put in all these sanitized stations, and you're going to be doing checks on your temperature when you come in, and all that stuff is fine, well and good. But if you're asymptomatic, you won't know. And
oh gosh, I heard what you said. Say that again.
Yeah. So let's say you say we got protocols in place. Before you can come in, you have to get the temperature check and then put it on your forehead to make sure your temperature is in line.
That's right.
And then when you come in, you got to go to the hand sanitizer station. I'm gonna talk about the hand sanitizer too, because that's another issue. Yeah. Hand sanitizer station before you start class. And then when you come to your class, your desk should be cleaned already. Okay, because they should have cleaned it like the night before or whatever. So you got all these protocols in place, but there's other protocols they don't have in place yet. So for instance, when I go to my locker, who can be around me? When I go to the bathroom, who's going to monitor the bathroom to make sure there's social distancing?
Yes, and clean.
And clean. And then there's some other stuff too I can talk about the bathroom, and I can tell you about that. When I go to lunch, okay, if you want me to eat lunch in my classroom, I still got to go get my lunch, or are you going to bring lunch to me?
Oh.
So, I mean, see, these are all logistical and behavioral aspects that need to be looked at. Also, a lot of these schools have been closed, right? Yeah. And so you got to start that school up. So what's happened since that school has been closed? Well, it's been dormant. And so you have water, because we get into water health and safety.
Yes.
You have stagnant water that's in the school. And so, before you go and open up that school, you need to be flushing the pipes of that school, because otherwise you can have a possibility for Legionella.
Oh my gosh, stop right there. You said stagnant water in the schools.
Yes.
Because the water has not been run, the toilets have not been flushed.
Yes.
How many schools are actually doing that?
We don't know. We put it out there. We put it out there as something that you need to do.
Yeah.
But we haven't gotten a response to say that somebody's going to do it. But these are things that need to take place, because now you would not only have a COVID situation, you could also have Legionnaire's disease.
And a parasitic infection run amok.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Oh, okay. So let's first go to the bathroom protocols. Carl, I did this entire segment on COVID bathroom rules. It's on the YouTube channel. You all click around until you find COVID bathroom, how to navigate in the bathroom. What say you? You're the expert.
Well, there's a couple of things. One is you see, now I'm talking about behavior and people movement, logistics. You're going to have to now have someone monitor the bathroom. So you're going to have, like you used to have hall monitors in school, you have to have a bathroom monitor.
Yes.
And just like you see the people going into the grocery store, and they got the laptop or the iPad, and they checking the number of people that can come in, because there's a limit as far as the number of people that can come in. You got to do the same thing with the bathroom. Okay. Yeah, you do, because you can't have too many people in that same space.
Okay.
And the bathrooms are a smaller space. The other thing is you got to start training people how to use the bathroom in a different way.
Yep.
And so there's things that are going to have to take place. Like, for instance, if your school does not have toilet lids, you need to put in toilet lids. And you got to train people that when they go to the bathroom, especially when they do the number two, that you put the lid down. You say, well, why I got to put the lid down? Because if you don't put the lid down and you flush that toilet, you get the spray.
That's right.
Okay, so you're trying to contain the spray. Okay, why I got to contain the spray? Is it going to stop the smell? It may not stop the smell, but if you are asymptomatic, guess what's in your waste? In your poop. You could have COVID in your poop.
And in your pee.
Yes. And so we talked about this too. Integrated Green Technologies, we told them, we said, there are ways to test for asymptomatic people through waste.
That's right.
The University of Illinois here in Chicago is already doing that. They're doing studies to identify where COVID episodes are taking place based on waste. They're doing waste studies.
That's awesome.
And because of the fact that, and people don't realize this, your DNA is captured. So if you go into the doctor, has surgery, anything like that, the government knows your DNA.
Say it.
Okay. And so when they do these tests and they're able to test to see the COVID, they can also trace it back to your DNA and say, oh, Carl, you the one that got COVID. You need to come in and we need to know who else you've been talking to because you got the COVID.
Wow. Well, wait a minute. Let me pause right here. First, I want to show something. See this little thing here? I get them three in a pack at the dollar store. $1, $1, Dollar Tree. They're sturdy. They're travel friendly. They do not leak. Fill these bad boys with peroxide.
Yes.
When you get, Carl, I talk about this all the time. I can't stand those toilets that flush before you can even get your pants up. I can't stand them. So one little movement right after you stand up and the toilet's flushing. And if you don't also close the lid, everything that's in it sprays around about 50 feet, right, Carl?
At least.
The pressure of it.
And depending on what the airflow and the ventilation is in that space, yes, it could be more.
It could be more. And it makes a good case for closing the lid at home too. Hello, somebody.
Yes.
We do it here.
That's right.
Okay. So this bottle, carry it with peroxide. Peroxide is a germ assassin. Peroxide will kill the virus.
Yes, it will.
Thank you, Carl.
Yes, it will.
Pour this in the toilet first.
Mm-hmm.
So just on the off chance that the person who walked out before you walked in had COVID, and then flush that toilet, okay? And then go. You could also use it to clean the toilet seat.
Yes, you can.
You could also fill it with vinegar.
Yes, you can.
Okay? Distilled white vinegar, not the apple cider vinegar, y'all.
I agree.
Distilled white vinegar, very low pH, around 2. Kills the virus.
Yes, it does.
Right.
The people don't realize how fragile the virus is.
Ooh,
it's very fragile.
Let's just talk about that right there. Because if the virus is so fragile, since the virus is so fragile, you would think that we would have combated it by now. However, we're not having these conversations because you can combat that thing. You can lick that thing in the butt, but you have to know how.
That's right.
All right. So you're talking about the splashing stuff on the inside of the toilet. We need a bathroom monitor equally, just like when you go out to the fancy clubs, the lady goes into the bathroom. I don't know if they have them in the men's room, do they? You have the monitor in the men's room, give you a little.
Some clubs you do. Some clubs, the high-end restaurants, that kind of stuff. When you could go and eat in the restaurant, yes, you did.
Yes. So they go into the bathroom after you come out. They clean the toilet. They spray a little something in there and make sure that toilet is fresh for the next person. We need those in schools.
Yes, you do.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, you do. And when you look at the protocols around school openings, I have yet to see anything that talks about bathroom protocol. Not yet. But that's behavioral aspects of dealing with COVID. Those are the things that we have to put on the table, because that's what gives parents that confidence that their child is going to be okay and is going to come back the same way that they left.
There you go. Now
Mhm.
let's have, before we wind up today and start taking questions, what do we need for sanitizer? Tell us about the sanitizer conundrum.
You mean besides soap and water?
Besides soap and water.
Because
That's
soap
my
and water
favorite.
is the best thing to have. But you got all these people that have these sanitizer stations, okay?
Yeah.
And you hear the phrase, you know, anything in excess may not be good.
Absolutely.
Whether whatever you eat in excess, not good. Whatever you take outside, you know, for your body, lotion thing, may not be good. So we don't know the effect of using too much sanitizer.
Mm.
We don't know that either.
And
So
it's not
now,
even effective for, and it's not even effective for all that long.
it's effective for as long as that alcohol that's in the sanitizer expires. So it's within minutes. So it's not so.
Go ahead.
So you think about it, because you go to the gas station, you pump gas, you get in your car, okay, you put sanitizer on. So it kills for that moment. And then once that alcohol evaporates, it's done. That episode is done. It's like taking a photograph. Okay, I took a photograph. Okay, the photograph is done. I did my hands. It's done. It doesn't protect you for the next thing you're about to do.
Okay. Now, does it take care of the gasoline that's on the hand? Not that I would ever touch a gas pump ever. You know, Chicago girls have traveled with a gas glove since I was 16. So
well, you're more worried about the handle than you are about the gasoline, because you don't know what the other person,
very much
what they did. Some people wear gloves when they go get their gas pumped now. Some people do not. And so to precaution yourself for those that do not, that's why you keep sanitizer in your car. But that's the only place I keep sanitizer is in my car.
Oh, wow.
That's the only place I do. Everything else is soap and water. Because when you think about it, the price of sanitizer has gone up.
Completely. That's why I advocate for making your own.
You can make your own. But if you notice, the price of soap hadn't gone up.
Ah.
And soap and water is the best way to kill it.
Ah. I want you all to prepare to ask your questions very quickly in just a moment. Carl, so soap and water is the best thing. I always say too that sanitizer is detrimental because it contains antibiotics, first of all, and we are already an antibiotic resistant society.
That's correct.
And as we continue to live in these times, we need to move away from that, because when the next plague comes, and there will be another plague, we need to understand that an antibiotic should kill a thing if it can kill it.
That's right.
Okay.
And that's why using all these cleaning supplies, Dr. LaJoyce, is you have to be cautious about too. Because what you think is smelling fresh, like the Pine Sol lady on the commercial, and you smell so fresh, well, guess what? That also goes into your lungs.
Yes.
And when you have too much of that Lysol and the bleach and all that kind of stuff, that's affecting your health.
Yep.
It's affecting your lungs and makes you susceptible to things like COVID.
And so, for those of you who had not been listening to the series that we've been doing here, The Healthy New You, the Healthy Home, Is Your Home Healthy webinars that we have been putting on for the last 2 years or so. You've heard it now from a sustainability expert that these things are killing you. These, with every sip that you take of a regular dish detergent that you wash your dishes with, potentially containing formaldehyde. And all of these things are so dangerous and make you more susceptible to COVID because they weaken your immune system.
That's correct.
Yes. So if we have any questions, let's get to them now. Is colloidal silver a good sanitizer? That's an expensive sanitizer. I reckon it would be, it's a great sanitizer.
It is a
But
very good sanitizer, but for
yeah,
most people,
that's
you're not
cost
buying that.
prohibitive. Listen, I'm telling you, white vinegar, alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
use the 91% and put a little fragrance in it if you want. Then you put a
Mm-hmm.
little aloe vera in it if you want. In these same bottles, I do that.
Oh yeah.
I put wintergreen up to about here. Then I put the 91 about here. Then a drop of aloe vera and maybe some witch hazel. Shake it up. I've got my homemade sanitizer, and it's more than 70%.
Now let's talk about that just real quick,
Please.
because you have a hard time finding 91 these days. Have you noticed that?
You do.
So now what they're offering is 70%, 65 to 70%, because they say that's sufficient. But we're not dealing with sufficient.
No.
Okay. You need 91. If you can find 91, get 91. So that means you need to read that label, because you're gonna say, oh, it's alcohol. Let me grab that. No, read the label, make sure what the percentage is, and you want 91.
Listen, every time I go to a store and I find it, I have my secret places where I go. I'm gonna tell you where I get it. I get it at Dollar General. Can you believe that? Dollar General. And that man knows. I come and look on that shelf and I look way in the back. He said it's a 2 limit. It's a 2 limit. He said, but if you can find more than 2 of them back there, because nobody wants to get on their hands and knees and get way up under there. He said, if you get back there and get it, you take it. Go to Dollar General and go to a Walmart, because they're not open 24 hours much anymore any place.
No, they've limited.
Go to a Walmart early in the morning. You'll find it on the shelves. And don't forget that at Walgreens and CVS, they have the alcohol behind the front counter. You have to ask for it. So the shelves may look empty. And also Dollar Tree will have alcohol as well. You got to catch it. But don't sleep on the peroxide. So back to the question about the colloidal silver, listen, make yourself a sanitizer with some peroxide.
And you notice the prices of peroxide has not gone up.
Has not gone up.
And it does kill COVID.
Okay, and it does kill COVID. How about it? Drop it in your ear, inhale it in a nebulizer. Yes, indeed. Olga Turner is saying, why are some asymptomatic and others die? Because of comorbidities.
Yes, and that's a good question that we're still trying to figure out. It's based on your biology, your makeup. They're still trying to, and I've asked the question, when that person that dies goes to the coroner, do you do autopsies to figure out what the difference is? Just like there was discussion before, early discussion, and we asked the question, what about blood types? Is there a difference between blood types and your ability or positivity rate for COVID between A, B, and O? And they said, no, it doesn't make any difference. Studies have changed now. Studies have changed now. So now they say, well, if you're blood type A, you have a higher chance of getting COVID versus a blood type O. As we go along, we're starting to get the answers that we need. Okay. That's why the vaccine situation becomes so difficult, because it's come out so fast. You start to realize that what you're doing right now, you're doing trials in real time.
Yes.
That's what you're doing. And I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm saying that's where we are. And so we have to be careful about that too, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yes. Also, to further expound on Olga's question, why do some people die? In the holistic community, we're noticing the difference between people's survival and death rate are people who had low vitamin D. And the higher the vitamin D, they may experience just cold-like symptoms. The lower the vitamin D, they end up dying. That's what we're noticing.
Yes.
Now, we would like to see a study in the mainstream about this across the board. We would like to see the studies done on this, because this is going to matter. Black people need, even though we light skinned, Carl, we need a lot of vitamin D. And that's
Yes, we do.
so I go outside every day with my dog for at least 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Morning sun, cold, even in the rain. I go
Mm-hmm.
outside. My vitamin D was 25.
Mm-hmm.
It should at least be 30.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when y'all start talking about the difference of the light skin and the dark skin and this and that, scrap all that. I go outside every day for at least 30 minutes and my vitamin D was 25.
That's right. I
So I
got you.
need to start supplementing in a
Mm-hmm.
heavy duty way to get my vitamin D up. And I'll put in the chat what to use, the Renew, that I did a whole segment on that as well. And also, go ahead, Carl. What were you going to
And see,
say?
this goes back to what we talk about routines and going and getting an annual physical. Because how would you know that your vitamin D is at 25? You have to get your blood work done. And unless you put it on your calendar to say, okay, this month, or every 6 months or every 12 months, I'm gonna get my blood work done so I can see where I'm at
That's right.
and know what supplements I need to get, or how do I change my routines to increase my levels.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
very much
That's
so.
the education.
Well, I want to ask you a question. We had talked about the air purification earlier, and the air purifying system that I like is the Vollara.
It's a good system.
It's a good system. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to put that in the chat. The Vollara air purifier, black tea, I just sent it to you on your text. If you could put that up, please. And I'll also put the Renew. And I'm just getting the swing of this thing. So I don't see anything in the public comments, but I see a lot of things in the chat. I don't know how that transposes. And then Erica said, do you still recommend putting Neosporin? Erica, I never said put Neosporin around your
We didn't say
nostrils, baby.
Neosporin, we said Vicks.
Vicks, baby girl.
Get you some Vicks, baby.
Okay, Erica.
When we were growing up and you had that congestion, mama put that Vicks on your chest and put a t-shirt over that, and you slept so good.
Wait a minute, and May made it put a dollop on and made it put it in your mouth. We
That's
know
right.
better now.
That's right. We don't do that anymore.
Don't think we didn't do it, because we did do it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Erica. So not Neosporin, sweetheart. Vicks or anything with camphor in it.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Exactly.
Because that was the agent of the posy, the
Mm-hmm.
camphor.
Mm-hmm.
The pocket full of posy. Carl, you are a delight. We're just getting to it, you all. This was just part one of, I don't know how many conversations this is going to end up being. Carl, you could tell me when to stop. But we're going to get to more next week. So same time, same station, same guest, Mr. Carl Tutt. And we are going to continue to work our way through the sustainability determinants of health.
Yes.
As they relate to COVID. We didn't even touch climate change today, but we will.
No. Can I leave you with one thing?
Leave
I want
us.
people to think about COVID-19. If you look at the studies, could be a byproduct or derivative of climate change. So we can make that into a whole nother show.
Oh my gosh.
So just start doing your research and start looking at that, because these are things, climate change impacts more than people think.
Yes.
And so we need to talk about that. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. And I got some folks in integrating green technologies I can bring in that can really get into that conversation better than me.
We thank you so much for being here today. And we thank you for the commitment to continue to educate us weekly until we are fully up to speed on these topics. So I want to thank all of you for being here. And don't forget, I remember, Cassandra said, I remember the Vicks. Yes,
Hey,
yes, we remember
it still works.
It still works. Put it on the bottom of your feet too. Put on some socks. It'll stop a cough.
Uh-oh, look out. Look out.
All right, that and oil of oregano. Anyway, so I want to remind you all that the Wellness Warriors Weekend Getaway is underway. We're fast approaching a close. If we could have that flyer just one more time, Chris. The Wellness Warriors Weekend Getaway at the Essex Culinary Resort and Spa in June. Yes, in June, because in the summer we are going to get away even if it's to Vermont, get in your car and drive. Hopefully you all up and down the Eastern Seaboard, you can easily drive there, hop a train stops there. We had a time. If you look around on the YouTube channel, you could see some of the videos of the good time that we had in 2019 there. But it is going to be action-packed, 2 weekends. Choose your weekend. Choose your weekend. The hotel, the ballroom can hold 250 people. We are going to be safe with just 40. Yes, just 40. And that way we can say social distance, and you can see practitioners one-on-one. No breakout sessions, one-on-one with your practitioners. Join us. Send me an email, drbrookshire@outlook.com. Thank you so much, Carl.
Thank you.
Thank my team. I want to thank my announcer, Miss DJ Cheryl Hines. I want to thank my tech guru, Chris Green, and my supervising producer, Irvin Wright, IW, and my moderator, Black T. Until next week, to let your eyes shine, cut back on the wine, get good food fast, and go easy on the greasy. I'm Dr. LaJoyce Brookshire, here to help you attain and maintain your perfect health. Let's do it again next week, okay? Okay, Carl?
All right, let's do it.
See you next week.
All right. God bless.